Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike, and welcome to week of Thundercats Day 2. And we're going to talk about every vehicle made for the line. And then I'm even going to talk about the unproduced stuff at the end real quick. But this is much faster and easier than Day 1. Day 1, we covered every single figure ever made in the LJN vintage line with the most variants, which has never been done before by anybody in the world. So it was a very daunting task. It took a long time. It was kind of grueling, but this will be fun. We're going to talk about all the vehicles in the LJN line. Coming up. So the first vehicle we're going to talk about is Thunder Tank, which is probably the flagship vehicle. But I did make a video about this like, I don't know, a year ago or 6 months ago, something like that. But during that time, I did have these treads repaired, and they have failed on me since then. If you can see, they kind of split down here. And so with that, my repair did not hold on these. So the biggest problem is the treads. Now, even though I have 100% original treads, they split already, and I repaired it. They split in multiple other places. It is kind of a nightmare, to tell you the truth, to have original treads. Now, there's some reproductions. There's 2-3 other people making reproductions out there. They're very expensive, actually almost the exact same price as if you were to seek out original treads, but they last longer. So I would say get repro treads for this thing. So what does this do? Well, I say it does really a couple of things. You push it down and you close it all up with, get in there, Panthro. I don't know. You got to close them up in there and then push them all down. Now, I had to repair stuff on this. So, and all three of mine I had to repair stuff on. So, by the way, I just got them for real cheap, like 50, 60 bucks, and repaired them. Actually, I think I paid 50 bucks each. That's why I have 3 of them, to track down original treads and tread pieces to piece together original treads. But it does this when you push this lever on the back, it pops up. With more excitement and force than that, right? You know, so it does this, and then, you know, there's the whole, people say it has a chomping action. So this is not going to be present in the Super 7 version, but I think the Super 7 version is going to be vastly superior. I really look forward to the Super 7 one, and I probably am going to be told I'm a Super 7 commercial, but I looked forward to that stuff so much. So what does it really do? Well, it's got a seat in the front for whoever, Lino or Tigra. Even though Panthro should be driving, he fits in the back. He's really one of the only ones that fit in the back. The claws come up. You get these guns. The guns are adjustable, the chin is adjustable, and all that kind of stuff. I think it looks better. Mine personally looks better from this side because this set of treads held up better. But at the end of the day, I really think repro treads is where to go. And it has these doors. These are always hard to find. It was hardest for me to locate those and find those and all that kind of stuff. But more on this when I get my Super 7 one and do a review and comparison. We'll talk more about it. Next on the list, we have Thunderclaw, and so with that, so I'm going to talk about variants to this vehicle, but I did not talk about the variants to the Thunder Tank because they're so minor and minuscule. This is much, much bigger. So you got to check my Thunder Tank out video out to find those variants. But so these little arm attachment pieces are usually missing to make it incomplete. I do like it has cool stickers all over this thing. It looks like control boards and kind of stuff. So one of the things was that they had a lot of technology in this Thundercats lair and Thundercats realm and all that kind of stuff. Now this has a wheel on it, which is the only one. I have 3 or 4 of these. These are so cheap that I have a few of them, but this one has a couple of things. It has some rubber guards that help grab, so we're going to show that here in just a bit. And then we're also going to show the variant and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into the action feature. So Monkey lost his mace and his helmet. He's up to something really bad. But if you pull this trigger right here and you hover right above him, hover, you can grab him and keep him from doing something bad. So that is something really good. Now that mechanism does kind of seize up, and it seized up on this one. What I did was I put some WD-40 in there and just kind of, made it go back and forth about 100 times and got it working again just fine. It will seize up in almost all of these over time just because of friction, dust, and all that kind of stuff. But pretty cool vehicle, slick, and guess what? Every Ultimates figure will fit on this, right? Right, Tiger? Right. Told you there's variations, so let's take a look at those. On the bottom here, it has a wheel. For whatever reason, it has a wheel. And it has these rubber add-on pieces to the same one that has the wheel. This one does not have the rubber, and it does not have a wheel. It has more detail on the bottom where the wheel was. So other than just where the wheel was, that's the only detail addition. Not a big deal, and I'm not sure if it really helps anything. It doesn't really roll with the wheel. It's kind of a waste, but at the end of the day, it's a variant, and we collect those, right? All right, so next up we have the Hovercat, which I think is the best vehicle made for this toy line. It is really cool. It just reminds me of kind of the Cobra flight pod, Trouble Bubble, those kinds of things, but it has the windshield like the Trouble Bubble and all that kind of stuff, and it flies. And this one actually, I saw one out that works. Took a while to find one that works. I tried to make all my broken ones work. That was a nightmare. So, but this one will fit Ultimates figures too. I think all these vehicles will fit Ultimate figures. So it has a couple of features other than just spinning that. You do have a couple of handles that go on it, and then this you can rotate the wings up or down, which kind of really does reflect like takeoff and landing and all that kind of stuff in flight. So that works too. You do have a landing gear, retractable landing gear, so it sits really well. Pretty cool vehicle overall, and it's one that I think that you could have multiples of because you can have fly all your figures around. Should Super 7 remake this? Heck no, there's plenty on the market, but they're not all complete. So next up on the list we have the Mutant Fist Pounder, which I've made a lot of jokes about in the past, what's fist pounding, but at the end of the day, this thing is so huge. This one is the third one I've owned because I picked it up and I thought I wanted it, and then I sold it off because, darn it, I don't know where to put it. So I've created a new storage space just for this so I can keep it on this one. So it's weird though, because people really want this thing. Like it's one of those, because it's just so big, obscure, weird, and out there. If you have it complete, like this one is, then people want it. It's so strange. When I first saw it, I thought, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It is not really a good vehicle, but it does some cool stuff. So here's the party trick. Let's do it again. When you roll it, it makes the fists pound front and back. This is strange. Now, let's take a closer look at what goes on in here. Now, you can fit 3 figures. I have 3 figures in here. Comfortably seat 3 figures. Now, with this, I have Groon up front because he fits in there really well. And there's a seat belt right here that kind of tabs into both, which sometimes is missing. It's probably the hardest part to get. Second is the dashboard, which comes out, and there is like a sticker on it and all that kind of stuff. It looks kind of cool. It plugs right in. And then the chair. So this chair up here is kind of strange. So if I can get zoomed in right, then you have guns on either side. And this is actually a variant piece. Yes, it is. So the seat belts are sometimes missing, but you see how they plug in right there? I got a parts one, and I was trying to swap out seat belts. As you can see from my parts one, maybe not. I don't know if that's a good angle. Let's move this back, get a better shot on my parts one, but it goes around the round piece instead of plugging in. And that one here plugs in. It doesn't go around the round piece. The round pieces are different sizes. There's different variations. probably because they figured out a cheaper way to make it or an easier way to manufacture it or something. But my point really wasn't even the seatbelts. It was more or less I wanted the best looking chair that I could find. So that worked out. It worked out okay. At the end of the day, you could just replace this whole piece. Next up, I'm going to show the stickers. This thing has like a face in the front, and then when you do roll it forward or back, it chomps. Yeah, I feel very rudimentary right now doing this, but it does get the job done. It pops up and down and chomps and does what it needs to do. Pretty cool vehicle, massive, and you've got to have room for it. Next up, we have the Mutant Nosediver, which is really a cool vehicle overall. It's one of the, I would call it the small vehicle, like the smallest vehicle they make, but it's still pretty big for vehicle size. And when you think about it, it does some pretty cool stuff. Now, he has kind of a head shield when he's on this. Now, I looked into it, and you cannot fit every figure on this. Like, maybe a Slythe. You cannot fit Monkey in, because I thought Monkey would fit. I could not get him to fit on there properly. And then you could fit Jackalman, like I show you. You can also fit, I think, Vultureman? Vultureman will fit. Okay, so it does a few things, so let's talk about those. You do have some handles right here, which I guess if you look at it, you can hold that, because it's like a piece at the top and the bottom, so your hands could clip into either side, so that sort of works as handles. Let's get the other hand in there, and then we cover it with his head. And then you have these like booster engines. Now, the piece right here is the most commonly broken part. The hose is missing, and that's really the biggest problems. If you have these two connectors still connected okay, and the hoses, 9 times out of 10 you're doing pretty good. But even with mine, I had to take 2 and kind of combine them to make a good one. But it's still, neither one of them have the function where you roll this and this spins. So I don't know what's going on with that, and I haven't taken it completely apart, but it's just going to sit on the shelf and look good. So I don't really care. But you do fit classics, or I guess you could say ultimates from Super 7. So that works too. So I don't think we need to remake this because they're quite abundant. You can get one more or less complete for $40. Complete and working probably like 80 or 90. Next up, we have the Mutant Skycutter, which looks to be a very lame vehicle, but looking closer, it actually is kind of cool. The vehicle is made up with 2 giant wings and a centerpiece, and you have 2 handlebars, and you have these purple wires, tiny little purple wires. They're really addicted to purple wires. And the wheels, you have wheels on this, and I'm going to hold him in place so you can see it. And they can fold out when you're in flight mode. I guess you say they fold in, or they can fold down to roll. Does roll as rolling things should. So let's get into looking at the mechanism on the bottom. Now, this is where it breaks the most. These little pieces, these 2 here and these 2 here break the most. These are pretty strong because they're real thick. But it's there for one reason, and one reason only. When you pull on this wheel, you lift it up. And since Thundercats are quite organic, this can give you kind of an organic bird flight feel. It makes more sense. It looks lame at first, but the more you mess with it, the more you think about it, the more you realize it teaches kids how birds fly in one way, but it also gives you a feeling of realism. And that's kind of what goes on. They have a lot of technology with the Thundercats, but they also have a lot of realism. So to have this going on, it makes a lot of sense. It's pretty cool. But if it's broken and the mechanism doesn't work, it does kind of suck as a toy. Next up, we have the Thunder Wings, which I am going to call a vehicle. So the thing about it is that it is kind of what you thought with Star Wars mini rigs. This is exactly the same thing. They're small one-man vehicles that are really small, smaller iterations, but they're their own thing. And I've watched the show most of the way through. I don't remember seeing this, but it's kind of cool because you do a few things. If you look right here, these pieces go down and almost together at the same time to get the figure in and out. And yeah, it's not as easy as it looks, actually. I remember the challenges I had to get it in. But anyway, you can slide Lion-O up there. But because of the way, the nature of this, this was made for a figure that did not have that little trigger in the back. But you can still fit a figure with a trigger in the back because they designed it with enough space and designed it with a way to put the figure in and all that kind of stuff. Now, having him stand on his own, it depends on your figure, the strength, and all that kind of stuff, but just time and patience, you can get to work. Now, the cool thing about this Thunderwing is the flapping mechanism. You just push the button and the wings flap. And same as what we just saw with that vehicle, same concept. And it's like they were thinking about the same thing when they made this. And they made the Sky Cutter. I think the Sky Cutter was a little bit earlier than this, or a lot earlier. A year earlier than this, maybe. This line did not last that long. It was only like 2 or 3 years. It's not like it lasted for a decade or 8 or 9 years. But it's still pretty cool. Now, this does share 2 other things. Now, I will show... Okay, I'll show one. It's I got a super ultra cheap parts one, and I just did not want to invest too much in this line, and I already have. And this is with the Luna Lasher. I think Luna Lasher. It's supposed to have some stuff on the end that flips it around and all that kind of stuff. It clips onto a figure, and it has 2 pieces right here. So I'm missing 3 pieces. Missing 3 pieces. Make it look like it's like nothing, but it does. It's kind of fun and cool the way it works and all that. And this thing fell. Now, these usually go for about $200 for this thing here. And I got mine for $75 from a buddy of mine. It was in bad shape. I restored it and all that kind of stuff. That's how you have to collect in 2022. You just buy a really crappy one and restore it and make sure it works and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I did that. Now, there's also one more thing, and it's called the... So I think the last one is called the Stilt Runner. So the thing is that the last one that sold was like $250. That's a broken clip piece. But one before that sold for $100 with a broken clip piece. I think it's the same one floating around. That is ultra rare. Now there's somebody asking $800 for, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, a year. I don't know how long it's been up there, but nobody's paying $800 for a Stilt Runner. It's one of those weird things that when it pops up, it's worth about $100, $200. It's definitely not worth $800, but somebody thinks it is, but I'll do without forever, I guess, and just look at pictures. But there's some cool unreleased stuff that's probably worth a ton. So here's a picture of the Feliner and the Thunder Strike, and then the Lunatacker. So these were unreleased ones, and if I got the names right on all of them, I really just try to look it up and see what's the names on these things. But I think they're cool. I think they work for the show and the toy line and all that kind of stuff. And these are possible on the table for Super 7. And I gotta tell you, they're gonna be like $250, $300, yeah, at minimum. We'll see when the Thunder Tank comes out if we want them to do it, though. So that's one of those things. I'd like to see unproduced stuff get made. Nobody in the world's gonna make it unless it's Super 7 or one of those boutique companies. So let me know what you think about Thundercats Day 2, every vehicle made in the toy line. And I do want to say, if you haven't seen Day 1, that's every figure made, which was a very daunting task because nobody in the world has done it. Nobody's made a video with every single figure explaining just a little tidbit about each figure along the way. It's a long video. This toy line's way bigger than I imagined or realized getting into it. But 3 years later, it took me 3 years of stopping, starting, quitting, rage quitting, and moving on to actually move forward with it. And you know what? I'm not done yet. So tomorrow we're going to look at the play set. It's not 100% complete. It's 95% there. I'm going to show you everything and then show pictures for what's left. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to see everything we can do with that play set and Fragile Breaking Points. Talk about this and more coming up on Retro Wednesday. So Jeremy Hanger out.